have been tonight I get to review the development services budget. Next slide, please. The services provided by development services to protect the health and safety and the welfare of all who live and work in the city of Bellaire. We have dedicated employees in the department who work diligently to provide these services for you guys, as well as providing the highest level of service. Next slide, please. Those that we serve are the Bellaire residents, whether it be during our code enforcement items, whether it's to ask questions for the residents when they're going to do a remodel, if it's something that they're looking to, even future Bellaire residents looking to buy a house and wanting to know what that entails. We also get the honor to serve City Council, boards, and commissions, zoning board of adjustment, as well as the building and standards. Serve city affiliated partners, whether that be FEMA or the Harris County Flood Control Office. Those would be city partners. Of course, contractors that come in and do building here, as well as development committees. We also get to partner with various city departments, that be fire, police, public works, including the city engineer office. Next slide, please. So if we divided up the activities that take place in development services, we here. Moving on to that next slide, please. Here we've broken down the department into functions. We have your short and long-range planning. Ask those questions when people come in, whether they're doing remodels, whether they're doing during your commercial build-outs, things of that nature, and then as well as looking at the conference. Seeing those build-outs and those things, that's more on the short-range planning side of things, as well as the comprehensive plan, making sure that that takes place not only when applications come before planning and zoning and before city council, but also during budget times and also that with the CIP. What we are most known for in development services, we're actually often called the permitting department, is for permits and inspections. Under permits and inspections, we act as liaisons with the Building and Standards Commission. With that, making sure we're paying attention to updating of the code, looking at residential and commercial buildings. Along with that, we do have tree protection inspections that take place. That's actually done by a combination of inspectors as well as our code enforcement officer takes part into that as well. Then we have sign regulation. Under sign regulation, we look at every sign that is put up in Bellaire. We get anywhere between, I would say, 5 to sometimes 15 a month, depending on what's happening. I'll talk a little more about the sign regulations. We also get the honor to make sure that when you guys eat at a restaurant here in Bellaire, or when children are eating at cafeterias here in schools, or if there's a kitchen within church, making sure that those places get inspections. We also take complaints. If someone were to go to a restaurant or buy something from a grocery store and get sick from it, we get those complaints in, we go out and make sure that those things are done, as well as when new restaurants open up, we make sure that they are following the state health codes and making sure that you guys are safe. Lastly, we issue right-of-way permits. A lot of these right-of-way permits are non-fee permits, but it is something that we do contact Centerpoint when they're doing work, as well as other entities such as AT&T or Comcast when they're doing boring underneath the street. Now, if they're coming and doing right-of-way work to install your cable, we do not permit that activity, but we do take in those complaints should they not restore the right-of-way. Next, what we're also well known for is planning and zoning. That's acting as liaison with the Planning and Zoning Commission, Board of Adjustment, such as the SUP that you have for you tonight, and development, and also with zoning code updates. Next, we have the code compliance and enforcement. This is entitled this way. A lot of the compliance side comes in when we're dealing with substandard housing, That also goes before the Building and Standards Commission, and then the citation is more on that compliance side. Normally, before we get to the compliance side, we do enforcement. We try to seek enforcement before compliance. And then along with that, any code updates that come into play. Some other things that you may forget that we deal with on a day-to-day basis is dealing with the capital improvement plan is from a management standpoint of that. If there were a time where getting back to future bond programs, we would help manage that, and then creating those design standards has been something on the list that we're approved in the future. We also do floodplain mitigation. This is dealing with the flood hazard task force, not only for the city of Bellaire, but the Harris County flood hazard mitigation plan, which is part of that, partnering with the fire department. And a part of the community rating system, as well as whatever response that we need to do for FEMA. We also have recently added a new category that's grants management, that's dealing with HUD, dealing with FEMA, dealing with the various state agencies as well. And then lastly, we have the GIS and making sure that we move forward as a city, being able to take data and being able to show it spatially on a map. Next slide, please. So we have 10 people here that are help us get this done. I have myself partnered with Brian Carroll, the assistant director. He handles a lot of the operation side of things, making sure that a lot of regulations and things that take place. There's a lot of things that and processes that we need to follow to make sure that we can get everything done. He also helps out with the comprehensive plan, which would be that long-range money. We have the building officials who oversee plan review and the inspections, as well as that substandard housing, and he's the liaison for the building standards. We have Linda Barber, our code compliance officer. She is out and about making sure that in injecting debris, the vehicles, anything from chapters 22 to 24 to chapter 9 to chapter 16 to chapter 18, just to name a few. We have Ashley Parkes, the development service coordinator. With her, she's able to handle the front end, the short side of the planning, short-term planning, helping applicants, helping with the application process. She would have been here tonight to answer any of your questions for the SUP. She handles those for cut and dry SUP type cases for the. And we have newly added to the list the building inspectors and the plan reviewer. The inspector is only about 2 weeks in, and then the plan reviewer, she has been with us for close to a month now. We have administrative assistant who helps operate everyone in the department, as well as handling some of the grant backup information things, as well as the health department things, as well as she works as the secretary for all 3 boards. And then we have our permit technicians who help out with some of the code enforcement stuff, getting more into that, making sure that we have people that are cross-trained, but for the most part, answering a lot of the questions. We get a lot of calls, get a lot of inquiries about different things, and so our permit technicians are our first line of defense to be able to. Next slide, please. Now we get into the general fund budget for development services. You'll see salaries, you'll see the professional services. Overall, it has remained not a lot of big jumps per se. In the time, let's say in 2020, you'll see a big jump there for professional services. If you think back to that year, we also had a big year when it comes to permitting. That was Bellaire High School, and when you have a large sum, I think we collected close to $1 million on that, it costs to review those plans. So that's where you'll see some of those higher numbers. But overall, you'll see that we've pretty much maintained and making sure that wisely. We have those contractor services, those the health department, the health, third-party health inspector is paid out of that particular line item, as well as anytime we have, traffic, impact analysis or traffic impact studies done, we send those out to third parties as well. So getting those documents reviewed. The other financial costs, you'll see, the $10,000 mark for both fiscal year 2020 and 2021. That was, earmarked for credit card fees. Did not start credit cards till later in, the year, and we'll see what happens for fiscal year. Next slide, please. Here is our performance indicators, normally understanding how many cases were resolved through forced compliance. That's through a actual citation was written, is where we mean by forced compliance, and then voluntary compliance, average number of calendar days, how long does it take us to get a case voluntary in compliance. That we send out a notice to let you know that you are in violation of the code, and then you fix that within the time frame given without citation being written. We also look into the number of permits, that's commercial, residential, and how many calendar days does it take us to issue a permit, as well as how many inspections we do on residential. I will say this, we're using an encode system. Today was our first day going live with the SmartGov, and so a lot of this information will come out a little bit easier. We'll be reporting to you guys here in the next few weeks on what that looks like. And so as of now, it's really hard in encode to figure out which inspections were the commercial versus which were residential. An example of with the new software. Next slide, please. So management projects, I just mentioned the SmartGov was a project for this year, 2021. Going into the 2022, we're looking at the Bellaire Louisville Center study. It will couple nicely with the modifying the comprehensive plan review. Have a sign ordinance update. Looking at that, and looking at a lot of those sign applications, we want to make sure that what we have now is moving with the time. A lot of new things have come out with what you can and cannot do with signs, as far as aesthetics and things of that nature, and so we want to make sure that what we have keeps up with that.
Just a note on the sign ordinance, and I'm sure can weigh in on this, but a lot of recent court decisions have basically said that if you have to read the sign in order to enforce your ordinance, chances are your ordinance is invalid. A lot of cities are having to, and kind of that regulations require doesn't focus on the purpose of the sign. Something that will be to promote the character of the city.
Give me one example. What you're saying that you have to read it and stuff. Currently have a sign ordinance right now. Anybody questioned our sign ordinance in the last?
Not sure about that. I haven't received that inquiry. I do know that, for example, when you're talking about real estate signs, a lot of times, that's been one of the major categories that the lawsuits were revolving around. Any other big categories that you can think of? So we'll be taking a look at that and bringing you all some things to consider that we're doing the right thing.
We'll be partnering with the city manager office and making sure that the SmartGov system will be seamlessly integrated with the new end user experience with the C-Click 6 software that they are working on now. We will also, be looking into this year and next year and having a development service internship program. One of the things that we would like to do is, thank you, Councilmember Hosty, and something like some of the low-hanging fruit when it comes to plan review, being able to bring in intern to look at those types of projects for us, along with the sign ordinance. We need to do a sign inventory, so allowing an intern to come in and understand how development services work, as well as save a few in the budget and allowing them to do some of those plan reviews for us. We're hoping to do that, and that's going to work out nicely. Then there's the master drainage concept plan, partnering with Public Works on any partnership opportunities that were to come up in fiscal year 2. And then lastly, and really taking using of the smart gov to the next level and educating the public on how do you get from A to Z on various different processes throughout the department, and we're hoping to do that through the development service. Slide, please. Lastly, some things to ponder, future grant opportunities. There's this building resilient infrastructure and communities is another infrastructure flood mitigation grant that's out there. This opens up for 2021. Then there's the American Recovery Act, which is for the United States Treasury Department, and then other community development block grant mitigation grants that may be released, to know that how does it fit in our overall needs, and do we have a viable application for another thing that's not on the list as I close out here is knowing that we have added in those 2, 3 different positions back in, and so monitoring those and comparing and how that's working out. To pay close attention to that. That's all I have. I'm ready. You should have any.
You mentioned the master drainage. When is the next meeting of the flood hazard?
That should be in August, the last Monday or Tuesday of August.
Our goal is to get some preliminary information out to the task force and the council in anticipation of that, so that everyone has a chance to look at it.
How are we doing on enforcement standards with the flood regulations? I know there was one issue last year that was brought up about flood vents on residential houses, which are only supposed to be more than 4 foot above the ground, the natural ground level. How is that going? Because I've seen a lot of them that seem like they're pretty high, and I don't know. I can see they can add fill and make it 4 inches above ground level, but short of adding fill. How does that work? How's the enforcement going?
Since Christian has been on board with us, he is a certified floodplain manager as myself, and he's actually out in the field. That's something that he's going over with his new inspector that started, like I said, 2 weeks ago. But even beyond that, we've had conversations with the builders about this and making sure that they understand this. And so I think that we're on the right path to making sure that the intent of that ordinance is followed.
About the nuisance enforcement, I have a friend who's reported a nuisance, and it just seems like it never gets fixed.
I'm aware of a few instances where it may appear to be that way. The way the enforcement process works, it does take some time. We have a process where we send out that first letter. You have 7 days. If you don't comply, then you send out a second certified letter. You get another 7 days, and then after that, then the citation process takes place. Once we write that citation, then it goes into the court system. I do know courts right now is a bit delayed, just trying to play catch up to COVID. And then from there, if we need to start that process over, we do such. But again, it does sometimes, and here's the thing, many times I will send you a letter to fix this one thing, and then you fixed it within that 7 days, and then it happens again. And so that's the second, occurrence, right? I can't count the first one. I have to start that process over.
Yeah.
The only thing that we have implemented that, is when it's high grass. We send you, multiple high grass letters within a time frame. At one moment in time, we'll let you know that, we told you within a year's time. So even that, if I told you twice last year and now it's a new year, I gotta tell you, I gotta start that process.